They can kill me, but they can't eat me, man. I'm still here. Can you believe it? Did y'all expect to see me? Maybe somebody thought that I would drink bleach, but the fact of the matter is, you can put Jews in gas chambers. You can round them up. The Philistines could fight us, and daggone, Goliath himself could try to face down David. But to my recollection, he took 5 stones. Most people don't realize this. He didn't think he was going to miss Goliath with the first one, but Goliath had 4 brothers. So he had a stone for each one of them brothers, Jewish lore says. So with that in mind, here's one of my 5 stones. This is a song by the immortal, the one and the only Freddie King. Done by me, a white boy, so just bear with me. I'm going down. I'm going down, 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 down. I'm going down, 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 down. I got my big feet up in the window. I got my head right on the ground. Take me down and close that boxcar door. Well, take me down, close that boxcar door. I might go back to Chattanooga and sleep on Sister Irene's porch. I'm going down, 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 down. Ha, ha, ha. I'm going down. Take me down, 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 down. Put my head on the ground. And yeah, that was minus lead and everything else, but it's just something else to remind us that even the greats, everybody has probably heard the song by, now it's going to lose my mind, Bay City Rollers, but there's a song called American Band, and there's a lyric that says, up all night with Freddie King, I've got to tell you that poker's his game. Booze and ladies get him right, as long as he can make it to the show tonight. And, Freddie, much like what I want to get the Beardberry and do a little fable on, like so many other artists before him. And no, I'm not going to class myself with Freddie King before we jump into this serious topic. What I'm going to tell you is, folks, believe it or not, there's a lot of talented people out there. And again, I'm not saying I'm one of them, but there are a lot of talented people out there that have this feeling in their heart that they can't find their mojo without their booze and ladies, without their poker game. But I've made a firm decision, and with the help of my brother, the Britisher, I've decided to do this publicly to show y'all that, listen, whatever a person puts in their heart, whatever they tell themselves they can do it. You can do it. If you have a business you want to start, if you have a song you want to write, a poem, if you want to go to school and you're a little bit too old, everybody says, no matter what it is, tell yourself you can do it. Look at yourself every morning in the mirror, right in your own eyes, and say, what am I going to do today to help me? Because when you do that, folks, you'll be able to help your loved ones a lot better. So I hope that was a good enough entry. I'm going to try to be quiet a lot today because, Britisher, and a place can't be too far from you because The island is not that huge. To me, it's a little bit bigger than the state I live in, so I can drive from one end of the state to the other in a day. There's no place that I can not get to in about a 12-hour period, not even that. So very close to you, it would appear that someone came into your country, took advantage of whatever great things are there in England. I'm sure there's many great things there in England to take advantage of. Could have assimilated and become a citizen there. Probably, I'm not even sure. I hope that y'all fill me in on my spots that I don't know. But whatever he did do, whether he became a citizen or not, he left, got what they call radicalized, which in other words, he swore allegiance to Islam, and he came back. They made a plan, and it wasn't even to go to a military installation, Britisher. They went to your country, and they went in to where children gathered, where they knew these young people would be congregated. And they placed the bomb by the box office so that they knew they wouldn't have to go through any kind of security, hopefully not for them. And obviously it worked. And then Allahu Akbar. And as far as I know, the last count, 22 of your countrymen are now pizza toppings. And somebody doesn't have a daughter. Somebody doesn't have a son. And I want to know not only what do y'all think about this, but is there anything that can be done? And I'll start by asking this question. Is the idea of Islamophobia engineered by this insane group of people to put guilt in our hearts so that we allow them to kill us?
Well, I would say this, that more than likely the origins of Islamophobia may be, the term may be perfectly respectable. But it has by now effectively become a weapon by which to silence anybody who wishes to in any way be critical or even question where we are going, if you know what I mean. You know, if something ought to be changed, immediately that person is an Islamophobe. Be
it from within or from outside.
Yes, very much so. And you just sort of think, in that regard, perhaps the term may well have been something academic and actually really referring to something that truly existed. But whereas it might have been referring to something that operates on the very margins of society or something like that, it has now become not only referring effectively to the mainstream, but it's also become of mainstream use. And the idea that everybody is irrationally afraid or filled with utter hatred toward Islam, that's not really true. I mean, sorry?
Okay, go ahead. I'm going to let you finish before disagreeing with you.
Let's continue on that vein, because I have my own ideas too. We'll each let everyone go until they're done, and that's what we'll do. I mean,
if you look at, I just had someone on the comment section sort of in a video I made about this very subject, sort of say, oh well, but these are marginalized communities and so on, so they are being alienated by us. And my feeling towards that is, if I look back over the last sort of 25 years, things have become considerably more friendly in that regard. Britain is a much less racist place than it was 25 years ago. So it doesn't chime with the fact that while the nation is effectively becoming more open-minded, the supposed backlash that is the result of racism should become ever more vicious. It doesn't really make sense. So to my mind, this is not something that could be regarded as being the result of anything we are doing. This is entirely coming from within that sector. Now, I must say that to my mind, most Muslims, absolutely no problem, but it is only coming from within Islam. So whichever way you look at it, it is the Islamic community that is creating these people. Whether they are a minority or not doesn't really matter. There are no Jews, there are no Hindus or Sikhs going into concert halls and blowing themselves up. And somehow we need to acknowledge that there is a problem. This constant argument, it is not all Muslims, simply denies the fact that it only comes from within that religion.
You know, it's the same thing. Like, I'm gonna further down your point. Like, even though it basically is very irritating to a lot of dudes being told by feminists, saying not all men doesn't actually address the problem. They are having a point here, but it's the same for Muslims. Saying it's not all Muslim, it basically diverts you away from the actual issue.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't contribute anything to the conversation. And on top of that, the only thing that it leads to is a silencing of the conversation. You're just poisoning the well at this. You're just poisoning the well so bad and so to the top of the well. You're filling the well with the poison to the point that it overflows, so that the conversation cannot be had.
And to the point where not only a conversation can't be had, but no action is possible.
Either, because the conversation can't be had.
Yes, and the problem is that we have now, in a way, pursued... I mean, I said in the video, you know, that the London tube bombings, they were in 2005. The Paris metro bombings were in 1995.
No, you could have gone even earlier than this.
And the well, yes, but I was sort of looking at major events, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then you've got 9/11, which is 2001. So you're looking at you're looking at a time period of well over 20 years easily, which is a generation. So we've tried it for a generation in the course we're going. And it simply hasn't worked. Not only has it not worked, the situation is in fact becoming worse. And I don't think this is hyperbole. I think it is actually becoming worse. On BBC Radio, I think it was yesterday, they had some security expert saying he had spoken to people in the security forces over here, and they had told him that effectively since the Westminster Bridge attack, they were arresting people, arresting suspects at a rate at about 1 a day. And you're looking at that and you're going, well, hang on a moment, but that is clearly an indication of the situation just having become so serious by now.
Either the situation becomes worse and worse, or we are less and less and less correctly equipped to determine between, a Muslim person having a field day and just, having a connection fit, and a person actually being radicalized. You know what I mean?
Yes, but it would be funny. Well, funny isn't the right word. It would be odd for Muslim persons to have these fits, but nobody from any other religion doing the same thing.
Yeah,
because the fact that there is a pattern there, I think, is beyond dispute by now.
Oh,
the suicide bombers tend to be radicalized Muslims. And therefore somehow, and I mean, this is what I eventually sort of...
Hang on, Brent. Hang on, sir. Yep. Please hold that idea in your head. So you mean that no one is going into mosques and blowing themselves up in the name of the Archbishop of Canterbury, sir?
No.
Oh, I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah. No, I thought I would be very clear in my response that nobody runs into any mosques and shouts, "Long live the Archbishop of Canterbury," and blows himself up. No. In that regard, I sort of, in the video, I kind of, in a rather pained way, if you know what I mean, because I don't like the idea myself, but I sort of felt, one of the very foundation tenets that we have here in the West, that is one of the Enlightenment values of ours, is freedom of religion and freedom from discrimination on the basis of religious practice. And it is that which is effectively preventing us from being able in any way to act. So, for example, when Trump said he wanted to stop Muslim immigration, no sooner was he in the White House, someone would have taken him aside and said, well, I'm sorry, but the Constitution says you can't discriminate on the basis of religion. So therefore one came up with this, we will ban people from these 6 or 7 countries. But this is just it. In the end, we more than likely will have to start implementing rules that only apply to Muslims. Whether it be immigration bans, whether it be anything regarding the practices of their religion or their mosques or anything like that, it would eventually only apply to them. Because there is absolutely no need to, in a way, regulate what the Sikhs and the Hindus are up to. Because, in all fairness, no problem is emanating from there. But that means that we would effectively have to break with that long-held principle that we treat all religions equal. Because given that there is one religion that seems to be somehow breeding this, it is only that we need to deal with. But we need to be free to deal with it. And the one thing that is preventing us from dealing with it is the fact that we must either do it to everybody or to nobody, which means eventually nothing ever gets done.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and I'm going to not let much dead air be there. I want to say very quick. Oh no, go ahead, Jeremy, because I got something, but I'll save it as long as I need to.
Yeah, things that like I said to Ogre before the stream started. I have a friend who is basically a friend of mine who I play chess with. And the guy is an imam at his own personal mosque that he fought tooth and nail in order to establish. Now he's an aging man. He's an aging old man. And at some point, he decided to say, you know what? I am fed up seeing my community being torn to pieces. What I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to set an example for the rest of the community. Every single one of my religious office from now on are going to be filmed, and every single second of it is going to be filmed. Not a single second is going to be missing. And I'm going to post them on the website of the mosque. I'm going to ask to my followers, to my parishioners, I'm going to ask them, we need this. We need to show that everybody in this room is in disagreement and is equally hurt by what is going on within our community, and that we want to do something about it. So if you show to my mosque, not only are you ready to be filmed being part of the religious office, but you're going to be financially participating to basically weed out the radicals. No radicals inside my mosque. You don't like it? Fuck you. Get out of it. Yeah. And he doesn't take any glee in any way, shape, or form taking that kind of decision. He's a 62-year-old man, you know, and he has better thing to do at 62-year-old than learning how to film and how to place a camera, how to hook it up to a computer, how to live stream every single one of his religious office, how to make sure to back up every single one of his religious office, and have a backup, have a data backup, a track record of a videographical track record of every single thing that he said in every single religious office that he gave. He has better thing to do. But he doesn't see, as a starting point, he doesn't see any better solution.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I find, I wasn't listening to it all too closely, but there was some statement that was made today by, I think it was somehow the Central Mosque of Manchester, and various dignitaries from them kind of read out bits, and then some guy made the main statement. And as I say, I wasn't listening too closely, I was doing something else. But sooner or later, of course, they touched upon hate crime again. And I just thought, hang on a moment, this is the mosque which this guy actually is supposed to have attended. And once again, you're telling, you're bringing to a close your speech by talking about, oh, well, if anybody is a member, if anyone's a victim of a hate crime, you should report it. And you just thought, I'm sorry, but isn't the idea of victimhood being turned on its head again here?
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So one of their congregation has just walked into a concert hall and blown himself up. And they go through the process of saying how they condemn this and how this is not the way of Islam and whatever. But they finish on their being the victims again.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is that they won't admit responsibility. They don't want to. They don't want to. It placed them in an uncomfortable position to say that, yeah, maybe some of my sermons have actually led that man to, at some point, basically, like in France, it is a breach. Like, for example, we have rules about how our secularism should go. Like, why is it so important that he decided to film? It's not only because, it's, in and of itself, it's kind of telling. It's also because
he wanted to be accountable.
Yeah, in and of itself, it's kind of telling, and it's kind of a strong message. But also, why is it bombing us out? Is because normally there's an Article 28 that basically said that if a preacher wants a preaching to be completely dedicated only to the parishioners, he has the freedom to do so, and he has the freedom to say, no, I'm sorry, outside of non-believers, nobody can get in today for that particular religious office. So basically, this guy has decided to self-destroy Article 28 of our rules of secularism. And saying, no, Article 28 in the current climate that we are, Article 28 cannot apply anymore.
Yes, yeah.
He is advocating.
That means, how shall we say, in a way, Article 28 can perfectly apply everywhere, because chances are there is a reason why it's there.
Yeah,
but it was more than likely never introduced with Islam in mind. It was more than likely introduced at a time when most of France was completely Catholic.
No, Islam was already there. Okay. When Article 28 came about, it was in the 50s. So no, Islam was already there.
Okay, I stand corrected. But no, but generally, yes, there wouldn't really be any reason to deny Article 28 to any other faiths who might have need for it.
Yeah, that's actually what happened from every other part of the religious pond. Like every other religion are giving flack to kafir, to my friend, giving flack. Like, you are basically standing on the ground, like you were apologizing for destroying Article 28, and that's what he said. He said, for Islam, I don't care for your religion, but in my case, in my own personal religion, it is an untenable position.
Yes.
So
when you have the general idea, when you have the general suspicion circulating that there are some people in some mosques plotting attacks, then it may be helpful to have everything filmed and show, look, folks, we're not doing anything in here. Yeah, that's basically his rationale. Not only nothing to hide, but that has the early filmings have taken aback a lot of non-Muslim people, because they've seen an imam being vehemently saying, and very in a very vehement way and adamant way, saying, this is a poetic text. Yes, there are parts that are gruesome, and yes, there are calls for violence inside it, and it needs to be addressed, and you need to face the reality. Both the Quran and the Hadith, even the Shia Hadith, have violent parts in it that are grounds to breed fanaticism, and we need to recognize it and address it. And actually, we're going to be reading those parts, and we're not going to shy away from it. And I'm going to tell you what I think about it. Yeah, as I say, people speak of the fact that Islam needs you know, a reformation. Personally, I'm not even sure whether it isn't already in a period of counter-reformation. That might be what we are seeing now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, that's actually exactly the point. Is that most Western Muslims were traditionally coming from a Sunni place, and were slowly but surely converting to a much more hardcore secularist Shia place. And
Yep.
that's the problem, is that we are facing the counterattack of the Sunni community, of the overwhelming Sunni majority, wanting those believers back. And saying, if we,
which one was Saddam Hussein? He was the small faction, and that was a
Shia.
Sunni.
okay. Okay, I
No,
thought
no,
it was
Sunni is the greatest faction. Is
Right,
the greatest
so
faction.
In Iraq, Shia are the majority in Iraq,
okay.
but
Yes.
Saddam Hussein was Sunni.
I
Yeah.
thought he was Sunni because he
Yeah.
gassed the Kurds, and I think anyway. But I was just curious because it's funny that there's so much fighting between them. But in the end, and British, finish your idea. But I'm just curious about this because I hear y'all talking. I'm paying very close attention. In the end, does it matter? Because they're still saying, I read the Bible. I'm not ashamed of it. I don't force it on anybody else. There are parts in there that if I wanted to use it, I could use it to say to kill certain groups of people. But
Yes,
no
exactly.
one does that. As long as they interpret it that way, does it matter if they're Sunni or Shias? Does it matter any sect? Won't it always end up being radical?
That's the thing, is that for Shia Muslim, much more than for Sunni Muslim, the rule of abrogation actually genuinely applies. And an edict made by a Shia sage, made by a highly regarded scholar, an edict made by a highly regarded scholar is always going to be, because it's the last one that came, is only going to be regarded as the holy parole of God, actually, of Allah, basically.
But that would mean that it is changeable over time.
Yeah, the rule of abrogation actually applies in the eyes of Shia Muslim, not for Sunni.
The problem in that case is the fact that
it doesn't prevent it. Yeah, it doesn't prevent from
flexibility in there to change with time.
Yeah.
Given that Shia Islam has really gone distinctly back in time since the 1980s, it has only become more hardline.
No, it's the Sunni that has gotten more hard lines.
Well, yeah, I mean, so too has Shia, because, I mean, you know, when you look at Iran under the Shah, it was a completely different affair than when Ayatollah Khomeini arrived in the 1980s.
Yeah, but there's still a lot of places that are having a line that is more secularist. Like, again, Shia and Sunni are overarching big families. You know, like
Yeah.
Southern Baptist Christians are still Protestants. They're still part of the overarching Protestant family. You know what I mean?
But generally, what I meant with a kind of a counter-revolution in that regard. You know,
Yeah.
What I saw in that is the fact that if we look back at the Islamic world to, say, the 1970s, 1980s, you are looking at a much more modernist world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which then wholeheartedly rejected that. So it was almost as if the values of the West were beginning to win over. And then came a counter-reformation. Then came the revolt from the local culture and the local religion.
Yeah,
and has been dragging things backwards ever since.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that they are facing with a strengthening, with a constant strengthening and ever self-reinforcing position of radicals who are going counter to the more secularist attitudes of Western Muslims. And basically, they don't care, those guys, you know, like those radicals. They don't give a shit. I can't get to you. I'm gonna convert your kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, Britisher?
So they're not, as you said, they're not really allowing Western forms of Islam to kind of take root in any form, any way, shape, or form. The connection between the Islam in the West, their family connections and whatever with the old countries from which they come, is too strong to allow them ever to break away and become more secularized.
Yeah, that's why we have guys like Macron over here in France trying to reform the council and actually trying to promote a more solidified secularist line, something like basically not having, you know, tiny pockets of hardcore secularists that won't let go, but actually solidifying them into a very organized group. That's what he's trying to do right now as we speak.
Because secularism as such is almost a bit of a state religion in France, isn't it?
It's a state of mind, basically. It's really a state of mind that that your religion is, you know, like, it's your business and you shouldn't be pushing it upon anybody. Like, yes, people can say that, yeah, and no matter which religion you have, you in France, our secularism is really hardcore. Yes, we can say this.
Yeah,
to the point that foreigners often feel like we are being adversarial with religion, feel that we are unwelcoming to religion. This is a criticism that we receive. Look at any English-speaking outlets. How many times have you heard it? French people are anti-religion. How many times have you read that kind of?
I don't buy it, but it is hard for some people to cope with the idea of Catholicism. And no, folks, this is I have an RO machine that actually is a reverse osmosis for those that don't know what RO is, because of some herbology that I'm engaged in. And this is just, let me put it this way: if this was moonshine, there's no way on earth that at the height of my drinking, could ever do this, friends.
This would be even clearer, basically.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was scared when you held up the jar. I was like, "Oh no, ogre!" And then when I saw you chug it, I was like, "Oh, that's water." And
we got to stay on this topic, Staggerson. Believe me, we're gonna have a time where I'd like to have your cousin that looks so much like you, Emmett Woosley, on, so that we can talk about, you know, why we would drink or not drink. We'll probably do that Friday just for fun. But I must say really quickly, and get right back on topic, folks, that's one thing I'm going to work on. Not only not drinking every day like a fool, but also maybe keeping things together here to where it's not just a crazy thing. So yeah. Yes, folks, I've decided that I'm not going to drink anymore. And the pills that the doctor gave me, which are a mild benzo called Cirax, I threw them down the shitter this morning. So I figured if I got two legs, I can walk. So thanks everybody for your support. Those who watched Vaughn White, RPR, Drinking with Cats, Staggerson, I got a lot of love. I just can't focus on today. Believe me, I read every one of those. A couple of them, Staggerson, one silver tear, salty, and just ran down like this and moistened my beard. I really appreciate it, friend. Thank you.
You know what? I understand. I know what it's like, man. Trust me. Believe me, I definitely know what it's like.
Okay, but I got to rein in the horse. And so, gentlemen, we got one thing really quick here. Billy Bong says, let me go back now, Britisher. He says, I agree with the Britisher. The problem is the government used to make it the government used to make the people more adherent to their religion than their nation. You see, that's what he's saying, that the Islamic folks, you know, they've been bred that way, that the religion, it's what we call a theocracy. And believe me, people, I can read the holy book I read, and I can see what happened when the Israelites cried out for a theocracy. And even under the one that I follow, you don't want a theocracy. It's very clear. You do not want to say that God, whoever that may be in your mind, is supreme potentate of the law on earth. That leads to people getting rocks thrown at them until they die. So,
but isn't one of the reasons why, in that regard, God is held above nations in the Islamic part of the world? Isn't part of that also because the allegiance to nations in those parts of the world are rather weak?
It makes sense, but I can't speak to that if somebody else can. That does make sense, though, because there's a lot of little. In fact, inside of a nation, you have what they call Bedouins. And they live where they live. They're nomadic, and they don't represent, you know, they represent their clan. So I can see how that would be, you know, that they need to have the allegiance to God because there wasn't so many structured. I don't know. Anybody else got more ideas on that?
Personally, there is, for example, there is a silver. that's what pains me the most, is that how a Muslim who reads the fucking Quran day in, like every day he reads a little bit of the Quran, how a Muslim can miss, it's the second surah of the Quran, by the way. It's the second surah that basically said, hey, by the way, the very reason why we created Islam is because you kept throwing your politics inside the Torah, you motherfuckers. So you kept mixing Jewish people, you kept mixing your politics with the word of God. You kept mixing the two. It's the how does it escape a Muslim person outside of indoctrination techniques being performed upon them? Don't go ahead and tell me that indoctrination is not happening within your community, because otherwise the second surah would show you the like, just reading the second surah would be enough for you to realize that you don't want a theocracy. You don't want your state.
I hate to keep throwing him out here, but I was listening to Emmett the other day, Staggerson, and it seems to me like indoctrination, the word came up, seems to me like indoctrination of any sort could be a very dangerous thing, because that sumbitch sounded like he lost his fucking mind.
Right. Well, that's what it's all about, man. Indoctrination. I think, to get anybody to do any of these crazy things, like go fucking blow themselves up and kill a bunch of people, whether they're kids or just random people on a bus or anybody, Jews or Palestinians or anybody else, to kill another human being or to kill yourself in an act of murder is just, that requires some sort of indoctrination, doesn't it? I mean, even if you're a psychopath, somebody has to, you have to be motivated to do that by something, right?
Actually, Cass S, I am very much disagreeing with you, because when you look at the book itself, it goes out of its way telling you that no, you shouldn't. That's the thing. There are several instances that basically show you the historicity. That's the thing, is that when you are reading the hadith, so I'm not talking about the Quran here, I'm talking about the hadith, and on top of that I'm talking about the 30% that is shared between Shia and Sunni people. So both Muslim families, both of the big families, they know about that, and they know about the history of how the religion has turned into a political weapon to basically justify wars and killing people. So they have in their own books, in their own religious scriptures, they have examples of it happening in the past, and actually being told to them that this is the very reason why the religion was founded in the first place.
Mind you, I think when you speak of politics having been kept out, it may have been kept out of the Quran, but I believe the hadiths are supposedly quite.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is that while the Quran went out of his way, untangling the politics, and the original hadith went out of their way untangling the religion from politics. Then later down the road, more hadith came in. They
discovered them. They kept on discovering new hadiths.
Yeah,
that was the. So I think, for example, when the Christians had conquered Jerusalem, one suddenly discovered a hadith that basically made it absolutely clear that Jerusalem was holy to all Muslims and needed to be liberated. In that regard, it did at times kind of become a bit of flag of convenience, whatever hadith was just discovered that particular month.
Yeah, that's the problem, is that the rule of abrogation is actually blurring the lines between historicity and the new rules, as Bill Maher would pull it.
I mean, one of the things that I sort of think separates kind of biblical history in that regard is that we, and generally all the all the people that study the Bible, I'm having a brain freeze here. I can't think of the word. Something in fact the ogre studied. Theologists, that's the word. Cheers.
Yeah.
The theologists kind of agree that the Bible as such is man-made. But the origins may indeed be be divine. But if you actually look at the time frame when the Bible was compiled, you know, when you look at all that, you realize that it kind of took Christianity 300 years to begin to get its act together.
Well, and you know, it's the Muslims aren't unique. Staggerson has a great video about Mormons, because they also, the seer stone and all this, there's two religions that I know of that say their information came from God and it was just translated by man. That is not, that's a good point, Brett. It's not what the Bible is.
In a way you need to kind of give, it would be great if Islam could finally get its act together, because Islam in effect has a similar out as does the Bible. It just hasn't got there yet. And that is that, as I say, in Christianity, our relationship to the Bible is in a way defined by the fact that we acknowledge that it is largely man-made.
Yeah.
But when it comes to Islam, it is basically seen as this is the direct word of God handed down to Muhammad. Except, of course,
it's the
only
same in the Mormon church.
Only
Sorry,
what Muhammad said would have been directly handed down by God. But Muhammad was illiterate. He, in fact, dictated the Quran. He didn't write it. He dictated it, and scribes wrote it for him. So there was a filter, there was an intermediary. In fact, I believe he had one of the scribes put to death, who at some point claimed that he had put additional things into the Quran. He was one of the people who Muhammad had put to death when he came back to Mecca.
You need to understand also that the very nature of the Quran is kind of like, when you read the Quran for the first time, if you have never read your own Bible and if you have never read the New Testament, you're going to be lost, because very often they make references to, you know, the Old Testament and the New Testament, because they still recognize those books. But they, with the way it is written, they presuppose that you know it. Not only do they presuppose that you know it, they presuppose that you know not only the Bible, the Bible, and then like the Old Testament and the New Testament, but their version of the story.
Yes, the interpretation. You don't only know the text, but you also know the interpretation.
No. Those changes sometimes. Like, for example, there is a part in the Quran where Moses is struck by lightning. Like, God decides to struck down Moses by lightning, then resurrect him on the spot. Doesn't happen in the Old Testament.
Okay.
Doesn't happen in the Old Testament. And there is a commonly shared between Sunni and Shia Muslim hadith that is basically their version of Exodus. And in their version of Exodus, yes, it does happen.
So obviously, God thought that Moses needed a bit of a jolt, so he gave him a lightning shot and then moved off. So I mean that's a rather interesting point. The fact that some of the texts can change significantly, because of course there has been the discovery of, I believe, the oldest Quran ever found so far.
Yes.
I think it was found in Birmingham or somewhere like that.
Do you know how old it is?
Sorry?
Do you know how old it is?
I don't know. It apparently goes back quite far to sort of almost original times.
Oh, wow.
And it was found somewhere, I think, in a library in England. And it was seen as one of the great discoveries. But what is so striking about it is that it apparently doesn't bear that much resemblance with the current Quran.
Yes, and some parts have been taken out, as, for example, the first commandment is learn to read, learn to write, be respectful to your, like, the first commandment is the first commandment of Muslims in that particular version of the Quran is learn to read, learn to write, exhaust all of the knowledge that your teachers can actually teach you, and once you have gathered all of the knowledge that your teachers can teach you, continue to do more sciencing, because the universe is your classroom. Literally, that's literally what it says. Like, if you want to understand Allah and its plan, you need to be able to understand the universe. And actually,
That's awesome.
And actually, that's what was leading that was this particular version of the Quran that was actually circulating during the time of Al-Andalus, and that's why they were experiencing a scientific boom, a boom of science. Because basically, the first commandment was be a scientist if you want to understand. If you want to understand the religion, you need to understand the universe. Yeah. So that's why they were experiencing a scientific golden age, because it was the very first commandment of the fucking religion.
Boy, I know Billy's out there. If he's at work, he could come in. But I'll say this: I have to be realistic. There's some things in the Bible that I read it, man. Think of me what you will, fellow Christians, but I'm just going to be honest with you. If you don't read some of the scriptures and scratch your head and say, that didn't happen, then, well, probably I've got a bridge to sell you. Let me just put it that way. And some of the things in Islam, like it said that when Muhammad went places, the trees would shade him and the birds would. I mean, come on, man. Are you trying to tell me that a tree that takes, decades to grow will suddenly bend over to shade Muhammad? Give me a break. Piss be upon him. Oh, excuse me. I didn't mean to say that.
I think the key section in the Bible that always makes everyone smirk is Rede Caesare Cesunt Caesaris. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's.
Yeah, and then the rest is unto God what is God's. But do you know the context of that? Not to get too far off topic.
Go ahead.
Well, they were accosting a certain person, a rabbi, a very prominent rabbi, and his name was Jesus. His actually was Yehoshua.
Yes.
And they said, Yehoshua, should we pay taxes? Because Precisely. Caesar's asking us to pay taxes, and we think we should only pay the temple tax. And Jesus said, no. Yehoshua said, no. Pay Caesar what he says. So all y'all not paying your taxes, man, and you say you're a Christian, you're a liar.
Did he not show them one of the coins and show them Caesar's head on the coin?
Yes.
Yeah, because they were trying to trick him. They were trying to trick him because they thought either answer he gave would be a crime. Because if he said, do pay your taxes, he'd be going back on everything he said about God. If he said, don't pay your taxes, he's guilty of sedition, crucify him right now. But he asked somebody for a coin because he didn't have one. He took the coin, he held it up, he said, whose picture is on this coin? Caesar's picture. He said, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. That was my favorite Bible verse when I was a Christian.
Yes, but as I say, the point I would make is it kind of, to me, shows that the Bible is rather, there are man-made sections in there. Because pay your taxes, that is something the government would introduce into the Bible.
Well, yeah, but I agree. I would say this: if the mythos is real and Yehoshua walked the earth, man, there was many times where they tried to trap him like that, and they thought no matter what answer he gives right now, we got him. And man, every time they tried to do that until they got up with him in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he figured it was time to go, never worked, man. He would baffle them, and that's pretty cool. But I would say that when I look at this, let's just, for sake of argument, say no Yehoshua, no Jesus. For those of you that don't speak Hebrew at all, no God, doesn't exist. No, in fact, let's just say no Muhammad. In the end, I would say that the character in the mythos of the New Testament, the character Yehoshua, man, I would follow that dude. If I was a Buddhist, I would find good things about him and what he did and how he lived and the things that he said. I can't find a lot of bad I can't find any bad that he did. But I look at Muhammad, man, and I mean, he was a warlord. This is what I believe. I'm just going to come out with it. The Quran was written, was dictated, as mentioned before, by a warlord and a smuggler at the time, somebody that was transporting goods so that he could dominate his area, so that he could say, the powers that be say that I am the messenger of God on earth, peace be upon me. And probably so he could hump 9-year-old girls.
Well, just like Joseph Smith.
Yeah, like very much. In fact, aren't all these madmen the same, Staggerson? Aren't all of these madmen the same? From Joseph Stalin to Joseph Smith to Mohammed, all of them are the same to me.
Well, actually, there are some historical scholars who actually argue that Muhammad didn't exist.
Right, I agree. I think that there's a strong case for that.
He is a construct of several. So you know how the legend of Robin Hood, one believes actually that there are several truths within it, but they are not ascribed to one person.
Yeah.
So that he has actually become an amalgam. And one believes that perhaps Muhammad may in fact be the same thing. So the figure of Muhammad may in fact have been several prominent figures in Arabia that effectively got sort of compounded into one.
Yeah, same as Buddha, same as Sun Tzu, you know, the guy who wrote The Art of War, actually was done over, we have evidence.
Hey, no. Let's not be smart, Sun Tzu, man. Know yourself and know your enemy, brother, and you will be victorious in 100 battles. Not just teasing. What do you really think? Any evidence that Sun Tzu? I always thought that was one particular person. There was a lot of things written about him. So you're saying that, because I don't want to, man, listen, I'll ask you another day because I want to stay on this. And I'm saying, British or everybody, that be Jesus real or fake, be Muhammad real or fake, be either one of them composites of something. I would say that if I was going to model my life after one of them, it would be after the one that said the sparrow has its nest and the fox has its den, but I don't have a place to lay my head. He gave everything. And the things that he did, if they were even remotely true, any of them, even if you take the miracles out, the things that he did, somebody would have offered him a house. Zacchaeus, I mean, I'm sure he had offers of, hey, stay with me, or hey, here's this, or hey, you have a good ministry, here's the money. Judas kept the money purse. Anyway, so all I'm saying is, if I was going to model my life after something, I would, probably recommend Buddhism or Hinduism or Christianity, but not Islamic people, man. That's and not Mormons either. None of this cultish insanity that is
Anyways,
sorry, I know I ended abruptly, but I would just keep rambling on because every time I go back into history and I see it's some cult of personality. It's Lenin, Charlemagne, every last one that said, follow me and we will unite so and so, or we'll drive out thus and such, or we'll make a better world for those, was led by a madman madman, period. And for the sake of his own glorification, for his own betterment, and for the hell and destruction of everybody that would stand in front of him. I mean, I can't quit thinking about Manchester, Britisher. You're the only British person here today. And I think to myself, Tigerson, when that happened, bro, when you were telling me about that, the first thing I thought was two people. I don't think the other one says where he lives. Tigerson's mentioned it on my channel. So someone that you know and I know very closely, and that they both live in Manchester. Man, bro, I was like, and I thought Tigerson's pretty young. I didn't think that was this kind of, again, I'll ramble. I just smoked some oil and I needed it, folks. I really did. I feel great now. But what are we going to do? This cult of personality needs to end. There's something that has to be done. We can't let people talk about Islamophobia right now. That was the first thing coming across Twitter. If anybody follows Paul Joseph Watson, they'll see that he was tweeting Staggerson was out there just fighting the good fight that day. I mean, I seen you shut some people down, Stag. I was proud of you. And it was, I mean, it's time that we don't take this. We stand up and say, no, there's Islamophobia is bull, because it's not an irrational fear.
I think that if there is such a thing as Article 28, like being able to have your religious office behind closed door, like if there's such a rule in England, which I don't think there is, but I think that Muslim communities, the parts of Islam, like the Muslim friends and people that are, moderates and just want to get on with their lives. They don't want to cause any trouble. They don't want any of that violence and any of that gruesome bullshit. It's time for them to understand that maybe putting some cameras inside the mosque and also having the balls to stand up inside the mosque and calling their imams on their bullshit is something that needs to turn into a new habit for them.
Well, but I think in order for that to be the case, they first need to effectively acknowledge that there is a problem. and that the problem is not the result of Western intervention in Iraq or racism at home or Islamophobia, to use that wonderful word, but frankly, there is a problem,
Yeah, but
and it's coming from within our ranks.
Yeah,
That somehow must, and even if they don't, then effectively authorities, government, society as a whole must come to the conclusion that, hang on a moment, we have a problem.
yeah, but
And the problem is one particular group.
Praise
Yeah,
Keck.
that's what I just said in my very personal way, Britishers. That personally, I doubt that most of your Muslim co-citizens are properly represented in the media, and I think that they give the microphone to the wrong people. First, and second of all, I think that it's about time that Muslim people vote them, that they would be adamant and they would be vocal, even in the absence of microphones, that they would be vocal about the fact that, no, I'm sorry, I do agree with having cameras being put inside our mosques.
But
that the authorities take that particular decision, as you suggested.
yeah, but
And
sorry, if it is not coming, so basically, if it's not forthcoming from the Muslim communities, then effectively society will have to act on its own and just basically impose it.
Yeah.
And in that regard,
but even when imposed, the people that do agree, we need to give them a microphone. That's what I'm saying. We need to give a microphone to the ones that do agree, and let them, like, not prod them, and not try with our question to get them to say a specific thing. No, just giving them the microphone and say, okay, you said you agreed on having cameras inside your mosques. Why? And just let them go.
Do you think that it is sensible to effectively stop all Muslim immigration?
Who, Jeremy or our panel?
Anyone?
No.
Me.
May I try my hand? So first thing first, hello panel.
Hello there.
Glad to be able to join you. And I believe now that we should not stop any and all Muslim immigration just like that. I believe we should draw the line somewhere else, in that we need to draw the line where people's values are at. So I'm all for importing people of any faith or no faith at all. No problem for me. However, I need to be sure that their own personal beliefs, whatever they may be, are not against core values of our society. Because I want to be sure that they will not be trying to undermine the society, or at least very susceptible to such voices.
So your case would be one of extreme vetting, in order to use the Trump term.
This is a very loaded term, but in general sense, yes.
Okay.
Screening them, and actually we had, sadly it's not translated in English yet, but we have a story over here in France. Some members of the 13th arrondissement of Paris, so Britisher might be familiar with the geographical makeup of Paris. Basically, it's the district of Paris where most of the people living there are either descendant of Asian immigrants or first-generation Asian immigrants. There's always room, there's always job to be taken over there. They have taken some of the Syrian refugees, but some of those employers actually gave them a nem made containing pig meat, and basically handed them a bowl of it, and said, eat them to show me that you actually genuinely want to get out of the faith, and then I'm giving you your job. Yes,
this is a bit extreme. This is a bit extreme, because you're going against cultural norms. And cultural norms aren't...
Let me finish. Yes, this is extreme. But on the other hand, the people that got hired, they were people that actually wanted to get the fuck out of the faith. Are people that are searching protection in other communities.
Yeah, okay, so I understand that we obviously are open to taking in people that are trying to escape from Islamism and are not into Islamism themselves. However, again, as I mentioned before,
This is
I'm
going
not
far,
against
yes.
in Islamists. I just
Yeah.
want to make sure. The problem is I don't see a good way to actually ensure somebody's core values. People can lie. That's not biggie. Maybe,
Yeah.
just maybe, the right way to go about it is to have a rather slow trickle of immigration, and to, sorry, it will sound bad, but to watch them over a few years and decide after an extended period of time if they may stay.
Yeah, a screening process, basically.
Yeah,
Just-
but one extended in time, taking part
that's-
also while they are living in the society.
Yeah, so not vetting, but screening them, actually putting them on watch.
But
Okay,
with
so
how many people could you do that practically?
that's why I said.
Yeah, and how can
slowly
you
to
really
trickle down.
practically vet any one person? I can lie.
Like I said,
You know?
like I said a previous time that we discussed this, it's gonna be a logistical nightmare either way.
Yes, true.
Right.
At some point, the fact that it is a logistical nightmare should not scare us, because whatever path you take, it is going to be a logistical nightmare. And this is also why we should not automate the process and have as much humanity involved, as much mankind hands involved in the process.
Then you're going to have innocent people getting turned away just because people don't like them, and you're going to have terrorists getting let in.
That's why I said as many mankind hands.
I don't think that you will ever be able to make a perfect system.
Yeah, never.
I think in any way, I think we are now really at a stage where if it means we are discriminating against some people, well, then so be it.
I almost agree. I have a hard time with this one, though, because I do feel really bad for the innocent refugees. That's a very nice watch, Ogre. I feel very bad for the innocent refugees that are just trying to get away from the bombs and the rape and stuff, and want to come to America or go to the UK or whatever country they want to go to and get away from their horrible hellhole that they're coming from. And then we won't let them in.
And actually are able and ready to adapt.
Right.
And that's the reason why personally I like the fact that over here in France, immigration is not taken care of by a single service, but by several administrations at a time. They are facing with multiple agents, not just one person in charge of them, but multiple agents. So it kills the possibility to have, it kills a little bit more the possibility to have a single person singling out a single individual because they don't get along very well with one another.
To what extent is it really the first wave immigrants who cause the trouble? And to what extent is it actually the second and third generation immigrants?
It only takes one guy to blow himself up and kill a bunch of people. It only takes one guy out of a group of however many people you have coming into an area. It only takes one guy to strap a bomb to his chest and go to a concert and blow a bunch of people up. So, I mean, what can you do? Can you do anything?
Over here, so I'm going to answer to the Britisher question. Over here in France, most of the homegrown terrorists that have carried out attacks are generally third or fourth generation of kids that actually never were in any other country than France.
Precisely. But that's what I mean with, if you vet immigration, then you are still getting the first generation people in, and you cannot account for what the second and third generation will do. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, which is why I'm saying that immigration is not the only place that we should be acting upon. And yes, we should at some point need to basically force the hand of people in realizing, I'm sorry, no, this has been demonstrated time and time again. The ideologies present in Muslim communities are very fertile grounds, very much too fertile grounds for fanaticism to spread, to being born.
But given that we don't seem to have an obvious solution to solving it immediately, should we therefore what I mean is it responsible to continue making the potential problem worse by allowing in more immigrants?
I have this idea about that, and I would like your opinions on it.
Go ahead.
So let's suppose that before we start letting in immigrants, or rather refugees from any country or region, we beforehand sit down as a country and agree upon a certain limit of people that we are going to allow during any significant time span, be it a year or maybe a decade, whatever. And having decided that, only then we will make up basically a queue of people, ordering them by some kind of a threat assessment to what extent they are threatened. They are under threat from the circumstances, and let in the first, let's say, I don't know, 100,000 or whatever from that queue. Of course, after proper vetting.
To some extent, over here, over in the United States, to some extent, in most states, that's already what they're doing. That's already what they're doing. They're queuing. It's just that they have divided types of immigration. They basically said, okay, this particular type of visas are basically a bunch of companies sponsoring those particular people because they have very specific talents that they absolutely need and they can't get their hands on outside of America. So we need to have a faster lane for them because it's companies requiring them. And you know what I mean? Like basically, like the way the immigration is being treated upon in most Western countries, it's already done this way.
Yeah, but I believe you are referring to American H-1B visa system, which is significantly smaller.
Not just the H1, the H1, the H2, the H3.
Okay, so in any case, all those visas, I believe, are much smaller. The applicants are much smaller in number than the people coming as war refugees. So
they account for 20 right now. Right now, they account for 20% of the immigration total. Yes.
Okay. So in any case, my point is, so I get that there is a similar system already in place. Great. So yeah, what I'm trying to ask the rest of the panel, what do you guys think? Would that work just as well for the war refugees?
We need to. I hate quotas personally, but yes, if it comes down to this, we're gonna have to go there. But I hate quotas in any places. You know what I mean? I hate putting a number, an arbitrary number on things. But if this is what we have to come down to, yeah, maybe that's maybe that's one of the paths that we'll have to take. Sadly, but it goes against our values over here in France, and it goes against values in Great Britain. Like quotas are
values in America. It goes against everybody's ideas because it sounds terrible. Right. But what I'd say is, so what we're coming up with, I want to see if, just as gentlemen, just for my own edification too. I mean, I'm not like going to send this to the president of Earth or whatever, but we have one thing we're talking about. Maybe in a situation where we're dealing with people that do this kind of damaging indoctrination, that we might want to put some kind of limit on how many would come over, and we're using the word quotas. So one possibility, and let's see if we can, like, just right now, because we've been talking about this for a minute. I'm about ready to ask the chat if there's a doppelganger's itching over here. He's like trying to stir up people in the chat. This is
frankly
boring.
I wanted to make a sort of intermission, if I may. Namely, I'm just freshly off a stream by a friend, and unfortunately today we cannot have the Barbarian on, at least right now, because he's preparing for something. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want to see Barbarian live, sorry, not live, but recording from him live on a stream, there has been a pretty nice stream on Hack Jobs channel. I'm posting the link to the chat right now. So all your
hey man, why don't you go fuck yourself, doppelganger? I'm about ready to kick your motherfucking ass out of here. I'm not joking with you either. Why don't you go fuck yourself for a minute? No, what I was trying to say, boys, is this. Let's see if we can come up with about 4 things that we think that the countries could do together to maybe get a handle on this Islam thing, and then we'll segue into something different. And that one thing we were saying was quotas, wasn't it?
Quotas
was quotas. For refugees, really, wasn't it?
Quotas for refugees, comparative religion in schools, so that, you know, long-term effect, you know, everybody having an education on what the Quran actually says, even for non-Muslim, but also basically, in order to understand the Quran, you're gonna have to study the Bible and to study the New Testament, and also to study their version of the stories anyway. So on top of that, like, if I see Christians like bitching and moaning like, oh, you're gonna be teaching the Quran in class, yeah, but guess what? In order to be able to understand the Quran, you're gonna have to read the New Testament and the Old Testament as well. So quit bitching, you fucking pussies.
Yeah. And also, because I do love Dob, no matter how much I might snap at my friends sometimes, I want to get, so we got one right here. There was a very good question, because I'm going to say another way that we could deal with this is, and please bear with me, I'm human. So I'm not saying anything would be forced, but there would be laws. For example, it used to take a long time to become an American citizen because they wanted you to know the Constitution. They wanted you to know the preamble. They wanted you to know all the presidents of the United States. They wanted you to know the state capitals. I mean, when somebody became a citizen here, 90% of the time, they knew more about the country than your standard American that was born here. And that's a fact. Now they've loosened the slack. They've loosened the slack. So the question is, integration or assimilation? And could this be a way that we would keep track of people and make the process a long process that allows them to understand, yeah, we'll eat your chutney, but we don't want you to come here and try to change our entire way of life. That makes sense, that question?
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. I think if they're going to go to another country, I think assimilation is vital for everybody to get along. I'm not saying that they need to just conform to the new country that they're moving to and shirk off all their old ways, but, you know, kind of try to be a part of the culture you're becoming a part of. If you want to move to a country, you need to be a part of that country.
Yeah, understand.
Yes, but I think I think everyone would really agree with that. But the problem is, how do you actually bring it about? Because, you know, how do you police assimilation? How do you even measure it?
Through education.
Handcuff all new immigrants to an old redneck for a week.
I said it, Brett. I actually wrote it down, but that's excellent. Yeah, get Emmett Woosley to live with them for about 10 months, and they'll by God know America, won't they? But
handcuff the motherfucker with Bill O'Reilly for 2 months.
And I'm gonna put everybody on the spot because I think that quotas was a communal thing. So I just said that assimilation, and what I'm saying, Britisher, to make sure it happens, a long process. And at the end of that process, there's no, because now they give them a choice. You don't have to stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Bullshit. You show fealty to that flag. You take your time and go through. Let me calm down too. I'm telling you, folks, I have 3 days without a drink. So if you start to see the real ogre, maybe you rathered me drink, but don't tell me that because I'll fucking get pissed as shit. So what I'm trying to say is, it's a long process. And in that process, you can see this person becoming, as I said, 90% of the time more aware of the country they now live in than the residents. So I'm going to start putting people on the spot because each one of these folks, listen, let's not make it a long discussion. I'm with Dop. We've talked about Islam for going on an hour and 15 minutes. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of everybody here. But it's time we moved on because it is talked about a lot and we can think of, it's not okay in my mind to just talk about it. Solutions. If you just talk about something, you're blowing wind.
Okay.
Well, think of solutions. So British, yes, sir. I was going to hit you next, brother. Go.
Touch on in the clip I made was here in Britain. You know, Tony Blair, we had them before, but Tony Blair very much pushed them, and that was faith schools. And of course, by creating faith schools, you effectively create schools that are operated to the benefit of one faith. And of course, that was heartily embraced by the Muslim community. And the problem you create there is you create schools which are just visited by Muslim kids, who are taught by Muslim teachers, and you completely insulate them from the rest of society.
Which is why I said comparative religion being enforced in every school, even religiously led ones.
They've tried, you know, they've done something similar here. So basically, in religious education, in those faith schools, they must also teach about the Bible and about Judaism and whatever. But that still doesn't change the fact that these kids don't really meet anyone other than, you know, other Muslims. You are encapsulating them and you're basically making sure that they never meet anybody else.
So basically, you want
if you want them to assimilate, then let them grow up with children of all walks of lives and all faiths.
So basically, you want the public school system where basically every walk of life is present to be the only system.
Yes, I mean, as I say,
outside of higher education, you don't want a special system on the side. You want the public system to be the only one.
I see that we have got other faith schools in this country and whatever. We've got Catholic schools, Protestant schools, Jewish schools, all those kind of things.
I'm not against you.
Personally, I mean, as an atheist, as far as I'm concerned, they could all go by the wayside. But I also must acknowledge the fact that none of them are mad bombers. So as such, my view would be that as far as basically as far as Islamic faith schools are concerned, I don't think that's a good idea given the current climate. So whether you apply it to everyone or only to them, to me, really is irrelevant.
So put a cherry on this faith school. Are you saying they should have them or they should quit this crap?
They should definitely not have them.
Okay, that's what I thought. So I just wanted to make sure, because like you said, you're a taxpayer. You don't want your money going where they can go. Even Christianity, I mean, who cares what it is? And I agree 100%. Here we don't have no mixture, church and state. You can go to a private school. You send your kids to.
I remember when Blair, was pushing this very heavily and increasing the number of faith schools. I remember saying, "Oh well, yeah, that's a good idea because of course it worked so well in Northern Ireland, where all the Catholic kids went to Catholic schools and all the Protestant kids went to Protestant schools.
Worked out great.
A Protestant kid never met a Catholic in his entire childhood.
And then you got us and them.
This actually touches on the discussion I was having on Discord the other day, in that I believe it's not really the hate of individuals that drives people to kill via suicidal bombing or bombing. It's hate of some faceless and anonymous mob of people that you never had contact with, or you only superficially had contact with.
Ignorance, preconceived ideas, and lack of exposure. Yes.
So we got three good ones right here. And Dop, you were just talking. If you're ready, brother, I gotta apologize to you where everybody can hear it too. Sorry, man. Hey, man, what do you want? I'm a fucking ogre. I think people don't sometimes get that. I call myself laughing over for a very good reason. But look,
so you need you did what needed to be done. I'm good.
Listen. No, I don't usually do that. So let's move on. What do you think? What could be a solution to this? We have maybe quotas on the refugees that are coming in. We have assimilation, a long period of becoming a citizen. You're not just boom a citizen. You become it over maybe a decade at a time. And then faith schools end that. No mixture of church and state. Don't let the state fund its own destruction. What's something that maybe you could throw at us before I go on to Jeremy, and I'm going to leave you for last, Staggy.
Okay, so I'm a corporate whore, and work makes up a lot of important aspects of my life. So I'm thinking about workplace. And basically what I say is that immigration should be strongly connected to workplaces. And the country should ensure that immigrants or refugees get work in places that they actually get to meet local people, that get to rub elbows with local people, know local or learn local customs, and become, in a way, part of local community. Workplace is great for that because, let's not forget, we spend a lot of time in that.
Man, that's one of the best I've heard so far. I'm going to you right now, Jeremy. I'm going to put that down, Dop, if you agree with this wording. Work to be here. In other words, have a skill and then assimilate through the work that you do so that you're a productive member of society. Is that
Frankly,
fair?
I wouldn't even insist on having a skill. I would insist in the person being
professional patronage. Basically, that's what he's advocating for.
Yeah, I'm just going to scratch off the agenda and say work and assimilate through work.
Yes, very much so. And expression professional patronage is great. Thank you, Jeremy, for that.
Yeah.
All right, so Jeremy, how about you, brother? I know you have an idea that we can add to these four that we have.
Familial patronage on top of professional patronage. Being welcomed inside a family. Being welcomed inside a house. Like basically having, we have so many families over here in France that have more room than they need inside their own house. Why not going back at the system of the French diaspora as we were using back in the days when it comes to the immigrational process. Familial patronage. Basically, starting your life not owning your own house, but being forced to live inside the house of somebody who is there to patron you, to be a patron.
Okay, I'm going to write that down, even though that's terrifying me right now. So what you're saying is that new citizens to the country would live with citizens in the country that had space, so that they could see how those country people live and be treated well by a country.
But the patrons need to be volunteers themselves.
And we're okay. Thank God. Thank you for clearing that up, because I was starting to really get scared. So in other words, people would say, no, I would be more than welcome to have, let's call it an exchange instead of exchange student. I don't even know what to call it. I'd be more than welcome. More than someone wanting to be a immigrant here would be more than welcome to come into our house, learn how to make francois, meet grandma, learn French, you know, and all of this good things. That's actually a good idea.
In that case, I am volunteering to immigrate to America as long as Scarlett Johansson takes me in.
I seen in one of your videos, you said that if she had a doppelganger, you wouldn't hold it against her doppelganger if you know, she came over and gave you some poo nanny. That was very good. So Dop, I don't know, I mentioned your name, but it's, you know, that it's a twin. So last but not least, Staggerson, do you have, because we have just to keep your pump primed, we have quotas, assimilation, faith schools ended, no church and state, work as part of assimilation, have a job for them and assimilate them through the workforce, and parental patronage. I really like that
familial patronage, yes.
Familial patronage. I really like that phrase, and that would just be to have volunteers that would have an immigrant come in. What do you think we could do, if something to add?
I'm going to go ahead and say, put some sunlight on the situation. You know, either quit using this word Islamophobia or treat it like any other phobia. If somebody has a phobia of spiders, you don't make fun of them for it. You recognize the fact that you're scared of spiders, you know what I mean?
And you actually try to help them, getting rid of the phobia. Yes?
Exactly. And I think we need to spotlight the problem and quit pussyfooting around and talking about what it isn't. You know what I mean? It's Muslim extremism. It's Islamic terrorism. That's what it is. And the more we talk about it and the more we make that, you know, shine some light on that, then the less acceptable it's going to be for these second and third generations to feel like they're going to want to do that.
Well, so that one right there, we have, I would sum it up to say, be honest about Islam and their effects on society.
Basically, acknowledge that there's a problem.
Yeah, and also, I cannot help but repeating that. You would be amazed how much a member of any faith would be regarding you more positively because you gave an effort into understanding their faith. So do read the book even if you're not part of the faith. Get informed. Know what the book says. So when somebody points fingers at you and say that you're Islamophobic, show to them, no, I'm actually knowing what the fuck I'm talking about. And here I have some of my Muslim friends telling me the exact same thing, that they think this particular part of the book is gruesome. I'm not an ignorant idiot. I'm actually educated about it. Do read the book.
Yeah, that's good advice.
I would sort of add one or two more things, and that is, first off, no more visiting preachers brought in from the old country. You know, no people brought in from Bangladesh or Pakistan to preach at the local mosques. You know,
yeah, that's the thing that we don't have. We don't have a problem of this.
If need be, then, you know, have your own homegrown preachers, but nobody coming from Saudi Arabia to bring their values over.
Yes.
And another one, and I think that's a very powerful one, is language. That they all have to learn the language.
Yes, very much so.
So they're not speaking Algerian when they're at home. They're not, you know, that basically all not just the man who goes to work who can speak some French or some English, but the entire family, the mother, everybody needs to be able to speak the language.
Well, I couldn't agree more with that. That's why one of the reasons, Britt, it took so long to be an American citizen, because you had to know the language, or you did not get your that says you are now a citizen of the United States. Now, what they want to do,
I'm gonna go even further than what Olger said. when you look at the statistics of how many languages are practiced in America, you see a repeated pattern. People that are still practicing their language of origin, they are still very fluent in English. And they are basically like, we're not advocating, like, because I don't want anybody in the comments saying, oh my God, you're advocating for monolingualism. No, what we are advocating for is that the most commonly shared language of any given country that is facing problems with Islamic terrorism, the most commonly shared language needs to be taught as part of the process of assimilation. It needs to be taught to the entirety of the family. Every single member of the family needs to be a functioning citizen that can interact with the administrations.
And y'all can tell right now I just changed my hat.
I can definitely agree with you there, Jeremy, on that point, but I must disagree with you on another. And that is that most over here would disagree that people actually speak English in America.
Yeah, all right. We're going to leave it on that because these boys
May
go
I?
back and forth on this forever. But so I was going to try to do something really cool, but I let this, even the last part, go a little bit longer than I planned on.
May
So
I? Because
I'm gonna
I spy a pretty good point from our viewer, Captain Colpile.
hammer on it.
So Captain Colpile says, for the amount of money it would take to settle 10,000 refugees in US, you could resettle 90,000 in the Middle East. We are literally standing on bodies holding welcome signs because feelings.
Man.
Basically, his point is actually do as much as possible in the places that they belong much better than here.
Boy, that sounds like a really good idea. And I always wondered that if they hate our culture so much, why the hell they want to come here and change it to,
That's also the thing that is kind of getting on my gears, is how much Western societies are preventing Lebanon to take a major role within Middle East when they are actually saying we do have the devices to relocate them and actually slowly but surely ease them to the understanding, to lead them to the understanding that the reason why it basically turns to shit in their original countries, a country that is one of our neighbors, is because theocracy is like they don't manage to divorce religion from politics. Like what I'm trying to say here is that people in Lebanon are willing to welcome some of those refugees, and sadly, we do not let them do it. Our armed forces do not let them do it on regular occasions.
All right, now just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I know what's going to happen. If I let you go and don't cut you off, Britishers going to, and it'll never end. We'll just talk about Islam for the next hour. And I'm probably going to go, folks, there's going to be a hard stop at 3 hours no matter what from now on. Just because I got a life and I can't neglect other things for this alone, even though I do enjoy it so much. So I was going to do something that I thought was cool and like vote on each one. But I'll just say, as a panel, could we agree that these are good steps to have quotas for refugees, to make sure that they assimilate? And I would add to that, learn our language as a Britisher, and everybody I think agreed on that. End faith schools in Britannia and end them in the world if it's state run. To have a complete separation of church and state, Islam is what we're saying by that. To work to be here, but I would say that sounds harsh, but what Dob was meaning, to have the assimilation also work through going to work. And then we had parental or familial patronage. So have volunteers that would allow people coming in, and I'm going to say maybe some of the refugees, but mostly people that want to be citizens. And then be honest about Islam, not sugarcoat it, and not say, hey, it's the religion of peace, to just blow themselves up into peace topics. So if we all agree on that, do we agree on that? Just say aye.
Yeah. Aye.
Doppelganger, Britisher, 0. I don't know.
0.
Yeah, the eyes have it anyway. We already got the thing. So now, Dop, what was it that you wanted to talk about? You wanted to shift gears. I've been drinking. This is my 8th quart of water today. That means 2 gallons, baby.
Jeez.
Flushing it out. Get out, demon. Get out. Anybody remember that guy, Anus Ernsley? He'd be like, hey, y'all. He hit the son of a bitch right in the forehead. Me and my brothers, would kind of beat my ass over that because they'd be like, I was the youngest of 8. And they'd be like, hey, ogre, little ogre, come here. You got a pimple right there. Hey, y'all. Bam! Anyway, so that was my segue out of Islam, because it's insanity if you let crazy people say that God has told them something And I'd say Ernest Ainsley was just as crazy as any of these Islams, man. He would like get people to give him money so that he could smack them on the face and not cure their cancer.
Get out, demon!
Do you remember him, Staggerson, or am I the only one that remembers that?
Oh, yeah. I look at clips of those old crazy preachers all the time, man. That's what I do.
All right, well, like I said, all the water. So, Dop, you had something for us, and if he don't, somebody's got a topic that I didn't even know about. I'd say we covered Islam pretty fairly today.
Yeah.
So yes, apologies. I had to look it up again, and I have this tweet which has been since deleted. Fortunately, we have a screenshot of a very nice example of fail. In this case, by Cosmopolitan. Let's see.
The Sikh one. The Sikh one.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my God.
I believe it already made some rounds on the internet, but yeah, let's give it a try. What's wrong with the screen sharing? Why is it not working? Oh, technical difficulties. Please give me a second so I can straighten it out.
Let me screen share it. I'm gonna go grab it. Go ahead. Go. Somebody fill up the dead air. I'm gonna grab it.
Okay, I believe I have it ready. So, Ogre, would you please present me? And in this case, we have a tweet posted and then retracted by Cosmopolitan regarding the recent tragedy in Manchester, where 20, I believe, 2 people were killed. And obviously, various media felt the need to express moral outrage about people expressing moral outrage. And here we have Cosmopolitan saying that Muslim taxi drivers took kids trying to escape the Manchester Ariana Grande concert hall for free.
Yeah, I have a more complete photo. Like I have the entire rundown personally.
Great, please give it to us.
So this was the original one being posted by the original cab driver, so taxi driver. So a Sikh person, like actually identifying as Sikh and having a turban, and actually like it says it in the original tweet that the guy is a Sikhi cab driver, like he's practicing Sikh.
And let me get this right: Sikhs are completely different from Muslims, right? And
completely
well with Western countries. They are peaceful people, and they are hardworking people, and they are very much welcome.
Yeah. So having the lady from the Cosmopolitan right now saying, "Hey, did you take this photo? Could I use like?" And basically the Sikh cab driver saying, "Feel free to use them with or without giving me credit." And this is what they made of it, and saying that the guy was Muslim. Now I think that the guy must be regretting his kindness. And now Britisher is cracked up.
They're so bold. They're so bold.
Like it is a mistake. Like look at it. Is
it a mistake? Is it basically a deceit, or is it just based on the ignorance that she doesn't know that Sikhs
are not Muslim? Yeah, that's a lot of the comments behind that particular series of three ones. But isn't it the beautiful irony? Like the guy basically gives her a completely white card and saying, "Yeah, you can't even forget about crediting me. Like you can't you can forget about crediting my original tweet. Like you don't even need to credit me." And the lady does that with it.
Okay, so quick question, because I see the original poster of the photos is verified on Twitter. Does that mean he's somehow famous or well known? Is he a recognizable person?
I'm verified. That's a completely made up name. I don't know how they verify. I'm verified on Twitter and on this. And
okay, I was just curious, but because maybe that was a well known person.
I don't verified just means that they say that you are a real person, and you are like, you look, I get James Woods follows me and it says, the real James Woods, and that would be verified account. So I think it's just saying that you're a real human being. It doesn't necessarily mean you're famous, Dop. I bet you could make Mark Doppelganger a verified account if you want.
The Sikh cab driver is actually a fairly active member of his Sikh community. He is he's an active member inside the temple, and that's how he got verified by Twitter UK. So on top of that, yeah, inside the Sikh community, he's known as being a helper to the preacher, to the Sikh preacher.
This is crazy because basically Cosmo, in this one move, shot on all the Sikh community centered around him.
Yeah.
Very, very stupid move.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, like, the guy must be regretting his kindness right now.
Yeah, and on the other hand, let's not forget that actual Muslims in United Kingdom has been doing some creepy shit. And for example, there has been reports of Muslim grooming gangs, grooming kids, basically. And if such people were to give free taxi rides, I wouldn't be entirely happy with that, to say the least.
Well,
so there is also this angle.
Well, on top of that, it's a Sikh cab driver. So him as a Sikh, like, that's basically taking a shit on, and that's the thing that drives me nuts, is that in the original tweet, he says it flat out: I am a member of the Sikh community.
Yeah, and you know what? If you were to use as SJW language, we could say that in a way they erased his identity.
Yeah,
because that's what they did.
Yeah, that's exactly what they did.
But I say, isn't it just the case that many people mistake the Sikhs for being some sort of sect within Islam?
Well,
yeah, that is true.
Yeah, that is. There has been some incidents in the U.S. and yet there are people that still don't know that Sikh people are not Muslims, and are actually that they have been flying away, like they've been taking refuge in Western country to basically get away from the persecution of both Muslim and Hindus, because they were actually a third religious force that was born out of being tired of, like, it's a religion that was literally born out of being tired of the adversarial attitudes between Islam and Hinduism. Like, the religion was literally born out of, we're fed up with your bullshit, we're going to do our own thing in terms of spirituality in our own corner. And then both religion turned on them and decided to put an end to them. And that's why Sikh people are actually fleeing from, the region where they are, which is between Pakistan and India. Which is the place where the religion was born, because this is the place where basically, the hardships between Islam and Hinduism is actually the fiercest, and that's where the religion was born.
I think it is also where the British, when they were still the East India Company, fought a major battle against the Sikhs, because the Sikhs had their own kingdom and their own army.
Yeah. Yeah, because they were
effectively regarded as the battle for India. That it was either going to be the British who dominated, or it was going to be the Sikhs.
Yeah.
So I believe a few years ago there was some case tried in actual court. Not quite sure if it was United Kingdom or United States, where a Sikh member of military was requesting allowance, or were it police? I'm not quite sure. Was requesting permission to use his traditional headgear during service. Do you guys remember, perhaps?
Yeah, that's been happening quite a bit here in the States.
Well, and the Sikhs are cool. They drive truck a lot, man. You'll see these dudes, but they ain't no, I don't know how I got on this. I guess it's what y'all want to talk about. It's almost, but the Sikhs are cool. I used to run into them at truck stops all the time. Them boys don't hurt nobody. I don't think they eat cows or something. They got some weird things about them, but they don't press it on nobody. They don't give a shit what you do.
Yeah, okay. Little bit of a segue. So now that we've seen, some usual SJW fuck ups, like some, usual SJW fuck ups as always. Little bit of a segue, like I'm pulling through my teeth. What do you guys are like? Most of you are probably gamers, for the youngest ones. What are you expecting from the upcoming E3 for most of you?
Sorry?
What are you expecting to see at E3? What are you excited about in terms of video games?
Do you know what that is, Brett?
By E3, you mean the huge
I don't know what
conference and
E3
show?
is, so...
So explain that, because Jeremy, do you mind if I tell them what you told me that you do, or do you want to tell them, because people might wonder why you're interested?
Yeah, personally, I kind of work in video games, so in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, E3 is about to happen, and I always like to hear what people that are outside of the industry are expecting from that big massive expo, from that big massive
Also, E3 is a kind of video games expo, is it?
Yeah, it's the biggest event in the year. It's basically where they will reveal the upcoming titles and upcoming machines and upcoming technologies, basically.
Yeah, so it is becoming more of not just video games, as we were talking about, Brett. It does encompass some smartphones. A lot of times it will be what games they have on them and whatnot. iPhone will be there. These kind of things. It's more technology than it was 6-7 years ago. But it is a big thing. What I'm looking for is, man, I like RPGs, and there's not very good real-time strategy, I should say. Real-time strategy is my favorite. Like Knights of the Old Republic, Rome Total War, Civilization, these games like this. When am I going to see something badass come out like that with some maybe better graphics or a little bit more control of possibly an individual character where I could take the opportunity to get down in there and do some, Street Fighter style gaming?
Cole Pyle, you're giving me more credit than I deserve. I'm sorry. It is a big compliment to give to me. Like, you're giving me more credit than I deserve.
Unfortunately, I must be with Captain Cole Pyle on this one. You are the guy.
No,
so, yep, we call you French Sargon from now on.
Britisher, would you agree with that? Would you agree?
That we have to call you Sargon from now on. Is that it?
That I would be the French Sargon of Akkad. No, I don't think so.
And I've just invited Miles, who's been recently on an after-stream hangout talking with Jeremy about games. I believe may have something to say about E3.
Yeah, Miles. Hello, Miles, first. So
howdy.
Howdy. So the question is, are you excited for E3? Like, do you expect anything, any form of teaser or, like trailer that's going to be exciting for you? Like, are you expecting something out of E3? And if yes, what?
Sadly, I don't really have much to add to this because the Switch has already came out this year.
Yeah.
I have no interest in the Scorpio. And I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if something I don't know about happens, but I'll find out about that when it does.
I want to see where they go with this VR stuff. It looks like there's a lot of potential, but they haven't really quite gotten it off the ground as far as the games go yet. I mean, there's a couple ones that look kind of cool, but I'm excited to see where they go with it. I mean, I used to be way big into video games when I was younger, and then my life kind of went off the rails for a while, and I'm slowly getting back into all this computers and games and stuff. And VR looks really exciting to me.
Speaking of which, I believe Sargon, not the Sargon, has been recently posting a few clips from the game he's playing, something about defending from zombies. What is it? Guys, do you know what game is it?
Yeah, let me see what Sargon has shared about video games, because
he was shooting lots of zombies. I saw that. Yeah,
but he is very much a Total War and Civilization guy. He's very much a man of strategy games.
I love those. Are my favorite. In fact, I believe the Britisher. We were talking about it one day. I know you played too. Cabbage Patch Bastard. That one thing I have found about him is it does seem like a certain kind of people play strategy games.
Well, it keeps
I'm dumb, but I do it. But the more of the people that I meet that play like Rome, they're the deeper thinkers, because you don't just get in there and boop, 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 hit buttons as fast as you can. You think about it. You build your army. I love that game, man. I'll tell you what. I just got it for my Acer G6 Predator. And my gracious, man, it is. I didn't think it could be much better than the box I built like a decade ago. but it is so much better. There's no herky-jerky. The grass, everything's better. I will slow it down, and you can actually see like people getting speared and a little bit of spatter.
You can actually see the arrows coming towards you, can't you?
Yes, flying through the air. I turned it all up, Brett. I turned everything up as high as it will possibly go. Plays at no hitch, and I've beaten that game more than once, and I still play it. The last time I looked, I'm not even going to say. I'm ashamed to say how many hours that I played on the last one on my box.
Oh yeah,
many hours. Enough that I could have done something productive with my life, like written a beautiful book or something, but I didn't. I played that game.
That's the thing that people don't understand about games like Civilization and Total War and so on and so forth. That's one of the things they don't understand. Is like, why is it that you play so many hours? First, because it is a very time-consuming genre, yes, and we know it's very time-consuming. But second, it's because there is that syndrome that is literally, like, we call it, like, fans of those type of games, they call it the one more turn syndrome, that you just can't let it go. It is so much keeping you sharp and so much stimulating you to be managing an entire empire that, yeah, you have a hard time. Like, how many times have I caught myself in a game of Civilization and, oh shit, at the moment I decided to finally, get to the menu and save up my game, because that's enough gaming for that's enough gaming for the night. Oh shit, it's already 4 a.m. Well, there goes my night, I guess.
Well, I think what it does, it effectively exploits your inner problem solver.
Oh yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Basically, that because there is a problem there and you wish to solve it, it kind of needs to be solved. And the thing that is very telling about those games is that once you have actually passed the tipping point, at which point it becomes inevitable that you're going to win,
yeah,
you're no longer really that interested. It is while you are fighting for dear life that it is keeping you glued to the screen, because you're trying to get that one further step in order to solve the problem.
And if you reach a point where, yeah.
Oh yeah, guys. So thank you very much for letting me join you. And Ogre, apologies for disrupting the stream as it was going.
Just go away. I don't want to cuss you again. Yeah, I just grumped at you, man. There's no hard feelings. Don't worry about it. The one thing about everybody should know about me, I do snap sometimes, but I get happy faster than I even get angry. I forgot about it till you mentioned it, you motherfucker. Get the fuck out. No. See how
be seeing you, Dop. Be seeing you. We love you.
He's a great guy. He's an excellent fella.
Yeah, this is very much a problem that most strategy game developers are always facing with, is making the end game interesting, making the part of the end game somewhat interesting. It's a trouble. Like, generally, it's a slog until you get to the winning point. But like, there's still always, when you talk about the tipping point, it's very much telling to me, like, whether or not you're going to be interested in those games at a certain point, but you need to engage with the game enough that you understand the mechanics. And I think that this is what is very much off-putting to a lot of newcomers to the
with a lot of these games, it is that you've played earlier versions and they've got more complicated as they've gone along. And because you've learned them as you basically learned to play the earlier versions, for you, the step up to the next new version of it is not that big. But for someone who steps into it completely new, they look at it and it's like having to learn off by heart, a train timetable.
Yeah, but that's why Civilization 6 actually brought a lot of newcomers inside, because they streamlined a lot of the interface by shaking the mechanics on their head. They have streamlined and made it easier and created a more smooth progression curve. And that's the thing that I actually enjoy, is that for the first time my dad is actually understanding the one more turn syndrome. Like, even my dad has gotten into the game and is like, okay, now I get you. And now I understand where the pain is coming from.
Zero, you ain't said a word, and I ain't gonna be here a whole lot longer. I got some gardening to do as soon as the woman gets home. He ain't gonna say nothing. But I'm glad Zero's here. I tell you, he came in the other day after 2 weeks off, and I'll be honest, man. He is, to me, he is he's Razor Fist from the Midwest in a lot of ways. He'll just get on a rant, man, and he'll be like, "GD sons of bitches, mother," and he once he's going. He's like a freight train rolling down a very steep grade. Ain't no stopping him. Good luck. You can try to cut in. I'm pretty good at cutting in, but I don't even try when he's on a roll. It's good to have you around, Zero, even if you don't say much. Folks, I'm probably going to go because in about 8 minutes. So I'm just giving the warning. In 8 minutes, I've got one final thing to say that's going to take me about 5 minutes with my wrap up. So before I let y'all run off, I just got to say thanks so much for showing up. It is important to have confidants and to have friends and to have people that you can look to help you think about ways to solve the problems of the world. So anyway, video games for 8 more minutes.
There was one thing I would like to ask is this in the news in the United States regarding there being a maths error in the budget?
What? I haven't seen it yet, but I haven't been looking at the news too much today, Brady.
Because there's
always a math error in our budget. What are you talking about?
There is there's a BBC piece here which says White House denies egregious budget accounting error.
That's not news. That's like all the time, man.
Out by as much as 2 trillion.
It's like Stag saying that's every time with every administration. It's not new.
It just gets bigger every time. That's not surprising at all.
Oh yes, but what I mean is it tends to get bigger, but they kind of, the figures in their budget add up. It just basically means that we will have to borrow this much, but they kind of.
Who told you the figures add up every time? That's what Stag's saying. They never add up.
No, they don't.
Have a trillion that they don't know where it went, or 10 trillions. They always Britisher. I'm sure they'll make a bigger deal about it this time because it's Trump. But that's every year. Every time they do a budget.
Quite a large figure. That's
not in our economy.
Is quite a large figure. So I just
they don't care.
You know what they used to do is they used to say that they bought a hammer for $70,000 and they bought a toilet seat for $550,000, but those numbers just didn't add up anymore because it wasn't enough money to say 2 trillion. So now what they do is they spend it anyway. They do backdoor deals, pork barrel here, pork barrel there. A lot of it is on the municipal level because even municipalities get federal money. So you got to figure there's so many municipalities and the parishes and counties and every damn thing else in this country that once you give every one of them 10 grand, there goes your trillion. And then you have other stuff too. So I'm telling you right now,
the other trillion, they just go, I don't know. It's gone.
And I love to follow this stuff. It's nothing new.
No, it just says the budget forecasts about $2 trillion in extra federal revenue growth. And it basically then says that they've spent that twice.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I'm going to present it so everybody can see it.
Yeah.
I got to point out this is from the BBC News, not exactly a very American-friendly source, is it? But
no, like I say, I mean, they're very much in the CNN camp. But that's why I'm asking: has anybody over there actually heard of this? Is this
no?
I'll let you know.
$2 trillion would be quite a large figure to be out by.
Quite a lot, yeah. It would.
So they're saying here that at one moment it's used to pay for Mr. Trump's biggest tax cut in history, but that very same $2 trillion is then used to reduce the budget deficit. So basically, they're getting $2 trillion in, but they're spending it twice.
Jeez.
Sounds about right.
And that's why, that people are sort of saying, well, hang on a moment, surely they've missed something there. But,
all right, guess what, man? We got it again. This is probably going to happen about once a week, is because people from your channel come over here pretty often. So we have I'm guessing a gentleman, Iggy. What is this? Let me find it here. Iggy Tommy. He's saying whatever I do a Welsh accent impersonation, it turns out sounding like Pakistani and blah blah blah. It says maybe he's first generation British. So in other words, long story short, I suspect his mother is Welsh and his father's Indian. That's my guess. This is guesses about you. So if you care to tell us, are you what was the best one? Didn't somebody ask if you were Chinese or something?
Oh, I have been Chinese, I have been Korean, I have been Arabic, Middle Eastern, I have been German, I have been Eastern European. There's nothing I haven't been so far. I've also been an American who is putting on a very dodgy English accent.
Okay, so just with your own mouth for this person, Iggy, what are you, sir? What if you care to tell?
Well, I am born in Britain. I grew up on the European continent, so that's why I have a slightly strange accent. So basically, I have been English speaking all my life. But obviously, not having grown up over here, I have never acquired any domestic accent, which therefore throws a lot of people.
Isn't it weird that just being living on the continent and being away from British English, like, it always throws your fellow British people out of the loop,
There is this. This incessant need to somehow try and say, okay, I know where this person is from. Now, there is no Welsh connection, definitely not. So no, and there is also no parent from the Indian subcontinent.
He can pull a pretty good Swiss accent. I am privy of knowing he can pull off a pretty good Swiss accent. Think he was from there.
You've been living in.
I also do a lot of French accent if I need to.
Yeah, you've been living in France, if I recall correctly.
No, I haven't. No.
Yeah, and enough about that. We don't need to know too much about him. And hey, this is it. So I'm just going to say very quickly, check out the Dire Wolf. Check out the Wolf Pack. They go on pretty early. My time, it's usually, I think this morning it was somewhere around 9, 10-ish, something, maybe 11. It was fairly early. It was still morning here. And boy, I tell you, they're good. They're funny. They pay Quiplash. They don't charge you anything to play. You can go. They put the code there, and you can go play. And then Amanda Wolfchild's there, Dire Wolf. In fact, Max Bear was there today. It's just a good time.
Do any of them have German accents?
Here we go.
Sorry. I just
no, rock on. I think it's hilarious because Britisher, it's gonna be at least once a week. I will ask you that same old question. Eventually, you're gonna be like, "Really, Mr. Ogre, again?" And there's my attempt at an English accent for everybody.
Britisher is an MI6 cyborg assassin sent to monitor this channel.
Oh yeah, well I've seen him drink 10W40 motor oil one day, just like it was tea. He's straight up robot, never sleeps.
That was early on. I was MI6, wasn't I, Ogre?
Oh yeah, and I perpetuate that by saying that you're a 1969 model 0013 robot from MI6 that does drink motor oil and has a very elderly computer up here for his processes, but it's still pretty sharp. And listen, I'm out of here, folks. So I gotta say this. Britisher, if you don't know who he is, I don't know why the hell you're here, because most people are probably here because they know who he is. And I appreciate that. Check out his channel, The Britisher. As far as news commentary and insightful insights, that was terrible, and insights on what's going on in the world right now, I'm going to say second to none. And I'm not saying that because he's my mate, because I have other mates that do the same thing. And you notice a very lack of mentioning them right now. So if you got a second and you want to know what's going on in the world, you want it with an even keel. Somebody said way back, Britisher, I wish I remembered who it was. It's somebody that's in the chat now. It's just not clicking who it was. That you are bringing sanity to these insane topics, and that we need this voice of sanity. And man, whoever, I believe it was, I'm not even going to try now because I'll forget. Whoever that was, I am seconding that. If you want to hear what's going on, like what happened in Manchester, and you want to hear it without somebody going, "Oh," and yelling and screaming like bloody hell, well, then go check out the Britisher. He'll tell you what's for. If you also care to hear some very even-keeled commentary about atheism, about flat earth theory, and how that is probably insane. Well, I don't think that, but I'm going to agree with him right now. And some other things, Mormons, a lot of things. And you got to go check this out, man, because you have to see Emmett Woosley, this gentleman that is Staggerson's, I believe, second cousin twice. I don't know what he is. Some relation to him. Hillbilly, some bitch that looks like he's never wore a shirt in his life. And I tell you what, his granddaddy weren't no monkey. And don't say that. You'll really get him to go off. So that said, look, I'm going to end it, folks, because you can see what I love. I don't have to convince you of it. I want to surround myself with people that are more intelligent than me. If that's not apparent by the panel, I don't know what is. I want to hear their opinions. I want to add them to mine. I want to end up walking away from that a wiser person, someone that can maybe view the world with a bit of a stiff upper lip, with a bit of a cynical sneer like a Frenchman may have in my cigarette, with a little bit of American, fuck everybody, we're going to do what we want to do. I have to have all those things. If I have that balance, I'm going to end up being able to serve my community, even my overall world community. And that said, folks, remember, be good to your friends, be good to your family members, be good to your loved ones. Be quick to say you're sorry. Be even quicker to accept an apology, especially when that thing your friend, your family member, your loved one has done seems to be so huge, you'll never be able to forget about it. Because constant viewers, everything seems peaceful right now. And you might believe the world will go on forever. But at a time you think not, your friends, your family members, your loved ones, your life, and everything you hold dear will depart from you. Hey, Sydney, rough time, and it's all I got, baby. Let me find this exit button. I'm fucking out of here, baby. No beer today, son.